She sat alone on the sidewalk, weak from chemotherapy, her paintings fluttering in the breeze, just hoping someone would care enough to stop. 15 years old, out of options, and with 2 more treatments standing between her and survival, Lena Brooks wasn't asking for handouts. She was offering pieces of her soul, each brushstroke a quiet scream against the silence the world had given her. Most people passed by without a word, but then a man in a hoodie stepped forward, and what happened next would not only save her life, it would awaken millions around the world. Before we go deeper into this story, if you believe that art can heal and kindness can transform, hit the like button to support this message. And if you care about stories of justice, empathy, and second chances, subscribe to the channel. We share powerful stories like this all the time. Where are you watching this video from? We love hearing from you and always read every message. Riverside Hope Medical Center always smelled like antiseptic and silence, the kind that creeps into your chest before the doctor even opens his mouth. 15-year-old Lena Brooks sat beside her mother, Angela, in a beige-walled office that felt more like a sentencing chamber than a hospital room. The oncologist's words came slow, almost reluctant. Lena needs 2 more rounds of chemotherapy. His voice cracked at the end, not from emotion, but cost. Angela gripped her daughter's hand, but her eyes stared blankly ahead. Insurance had stopped covering anything beyond the standard treatment. The family's savings were already gone, burned through like paper in a storm. Lena watched her mother blink fast, trying not to cry, and felt a cold shame bloom in her chest. She wasn't just fighting for her life, she was dragging her mother through it. As the doctor left them alone, Lena leaned into her mother's shoulder. Angela stroked her hair absently, as if trying to soothe both of them at once. "We'll figure something out," she whispered, but her voice held none of its usual certainty. Lena didn't respond. Her silence wasn't defiance, it was exhaustion. That night, back in their 2-bedroom apartment in San Solano, Lena heard the sound of broken hope. Angela was on the phone with a credit union, her voice rising and falling in waves. "Please, she's only 15, I'll pay it back." Lena sat in the hallway, hugging her knees, staring at the floor tiles that didn't line up. Guilt curled around her like smoke. Her sketchbook lay untouched on the kitchen table, the corners frayed, the pages full of color and chaos. She picked up a paintbrush without thinking and dipped it into a dried-out palette. What poured onto the paper wasn't planned, a single tree, isolated in a storm. When she finished, she titled it quietly under her breath, "Still Standing." At that moment, something shifted, not outside her but within. Lena knew she couldn't make her cancer disappear. But maybe, just maybe, she could turn her pain into something worth holding, something that didn't ask for pity, but offered meaning. She taped the painting to her wall and stared at it until she fell asleep. Morning light crept into the apartment through half-broken blinds, striping the worn-out carpet like a barcode. Angela moved around the kitchen with a robotic rhythm. Coffee, toast, pills, each task a thread holding her together. Lena watched from the couch, still weak from the hospital visit, her face pale but her eyes burning with something new. She wasn't just sick, she was awake. Angela's phone rang again, another collection agency. She stepped into the hallway to answer it, but her voice still seeped through the thin walls. "Yes, I understand. No, I don't have that amount right now. Can you give us more time?" Lena felt the words like shards of glass, each one a reminder of how heavy her life had become for the woman who raised her. After the call, Angela sat down and buried her face in her hands. Her shoulders trembled, but she didn't cry. Lena stood frozen by the doorway, her hands clenched into fists. She wanted to scream, to demand fairness from a world that had none. But instead, she walked over and sat beside her mom, gently resting her head against her arm. They didn't speak. They didn't need to. Later that afternoon, Lena opened her closet and pulled out a small plastic bin. Inside were all the paints she had left, cracked tubes, half-used canvases, brushes with loose bristles. She cleaned each one carefully, as if preparing weapons for a battle she hadn't yet declared. Her body still ached, but her decision was firm. She couldn't wait for miracles, she had to paint them. Angela found her at the kitchen table 2 hours later, surrounded by sketches and dabs of color. "What are you doing, sweetheart?" she asked, her voice soft and tired. Lena looked up and smiled faintly. "Selling these," she said. "If I can't pay for chemo, maybe I can earn it." Angela's eyes filled with something between pride and heartbreak. That night they made a cardboard sign together. "Paintings for healing," it read in big, hopeful letters. Angela offered to help her set up the stand in the city center the next morning. Lena nodded, clutching the sign like a flag before a storm. They didn't know what would happen, but doing nothing was no longer an option. By 9 a.m., downtown San Solano was already buzzing with movement. Office workers dodged tourists, street musicians tuned guitars, and the smell of roasted coffee floated through the air. Lena sat on a folding chair by the edge of Heritage Park, her sign propped up beside her. "Paintings for healing." Her mother stood a few steps away, nervously clutching a thermos, scanning the faces that passed. Lena arranged her paintings on the small table, a storm-racked lighthouse, a girl staring into the ocean, a cracked heart with wildflowers blooming from it. Each piece carried a part of her pain, but more than that, it carried hope. She watched people walk past, their eyes brushing over her like she wasn't even there. By noon, her legs ached and her vision blurred. A couple stopped to read the sign but moved on without a word. A man in a suit smiled, dropped a crumpled dollar on the table, and walked away without looking at the art. Lena's cheeks flushed with shame, but she forced herself to smile anyway. If kindness was a currency, maybe she was earning it one small coin at a time. Angela offered to take her home, but Lena shook her head. "One more hour," she said. Her voice was thin but firm. She painted quietly between glances at the crowd, quick sketches of birds, flowers, and clouds. Art had always been her escape, but now it was her only weapon. Her fight wasn't just against cancer, it was against invisibility. The sun dipped lower, casting long shadows across the concrete. By the end of the day, Lena had sold nothing. Not a single piece. Her hands were trembling as she packed up, not from disappointment, but from fatigue and the chill creeping into her bones. Angela kissed the top of her head. "We'll try again tomorrow." Lena nodded, not sure if she believed it. As they walked away, Lena looked back at the empty spot where her table had stood. She imagined it filled with color, surrounded by people. Not because she was sick, but because she mattered. That image stayed with her through the night and wouldn't let go. The second day brought more heat and more footsteps, but not much more attention. Lena set up her stand in the same spot, brushing off the dust from the folding table like it made any real difference. She wore her favorite green hoodie, sleeves pushed up to the elbows, and kept her paints close like they were a lifeline. Her body still felt weak, but her focus didn't falter. Some people glanced at her table as if it were background decoration. Others gave her that half-smile people offer when they don't know whether to pity you or avoid you. A woman in a business suit slowed down, eyes skimming the paintings, then walked away before Lena could even speak. The worst weren't the ones who said no. It was the ones who never even saw her. By the third day, her hands began to tremble more frequently. She dropped a paintbrush trying to sketch a blue jay. Angela caught it and held Lena's hand quietly, without a word. Lena shook her head. "I'm fine," but her smile cracked at the corners. She'd sold one tiny sketch that morning for $5. The man who bought it said nothing, just nodded and walked off. Then came the teenager. He rode up on a skateboard, chewing gum and laughing with a friend. "Cute hustle," he said, loud enough for people nearby to hear. His friend chuckled and rode off. Lena didn't respond, didn't look up. But her brush moved faster after that, angrier. A storm was building on the canvas and inside her chest. That night at home she didn't sleep much. She kept replaying the laughter, the glances, the silence. Was she being foolish? Was this all just a way to delay the inevitable? She stared at her sketchpad, the latest painting unfinished, storm clouds without a subject. Then she picked up a pencil and drew a single tree, alone in the storm again, but this time its branches reached toward something in the sky. The next morning she carried that new painting with her. No plan, no promises, just a feeling, Something was coming. She didn't know when or how, but she felt it, like the moment before rain touches the skin. Around midday on the fifth day, the rhythm of disappointment was interrupted by the unexpected pause of a stranger. A young woman with a camera bag slung across her shoulder stood in front of Lena's table, not rushing, not glancing, and not leaving. She studied each painting with quiet intensity, like they weren't just art, but clues to something deeper. Her name was Maya Chen. Maya was a journalism student at San Solano University, chasing human stories for her senior blog project. She didn't expect to find one in a quiet corner of downtown, but something about Lena's tired eyes and stubborn posture made her stop. She introduced herself gently, her voice careful not to sound intrusive. "Mind if I take a photo?" she asked. Lena nodded. The lens clicked softly as Maya captured the scene, Lena sitting behind her table, clutching a brush mid-stroke, the sign beside her catching sunlight in bold, black marker. Paintings for healing. Maya asked questions between shots, nothing forced, nothing heavy, just enough to uncover the outline of Lena's story. Cancer, chemotherapy, art, and hope. That night, back in her dorm room, Maya wrote the article. She titled it, "A Girl's Art Against Time." The piece was short but powerful. Just a few paragraphs, accompanied by 3 images, one of Lena painting, one of her mother watching from a bench, and one close-up of the stormy tree. Maya clicked publish and closed her laptop, not expecting much. Maybe a dozen shares, a comment or two. But something about the story struck a chord. By sunrise, the post had been shared over 8,000 times. People left comments with prayers, emojis, and offers to help. A small cafe downtown printed the article and taped it to their window. Local news outlets began reaching out to Maya for quotes. She sent Lena a message. "You're going viral." In the best way. Lena read the message with shaking hands. Her mom gasped when she saw the post. That day, as they walked to the art stand, the air felt different, charged. Lena held her new painting close to her chest, not knowing if it would sell or even be noticed. But for the first time, she felt like maybe the world was watching. The next morning, before Lena even reached the edge of Heritage Park, she noticed something strange. People were waiting. Not just 1 or 2 passers-by, but a small crowd, clustered around the space where her art stand usually stood. Some held coffee cups, others clutched their phones. One woman carried a folded newspaper with Lena's photo on the front page. Lena slowed down, unsure if she was dreaming, her heart thumping louder than her footsteps. Angela gently squeezed her daughter's shoulder. "It's you," she whispered. "They're here for you." As Lena set up her table, hands trembling from fatigue and disbelief, the strangers began to approach. A young father held his toddler in one arm and pointed to a sketch of 2 birds taking flight. "That one," he said. "It reminds me of my wife. She passed last year." His voice cracked. Lena handed it to him wordlessly, her throat too tight to speak. Another woman leaned across the table, tears already spilling. "My sister's fighting cancer too. She's tired of being seen as just sick." "Your art." It made her feel seen. Lena listened, absorbing every word like they were nutrients her body had been starving for. She wasn't just selling paintings anymore. She was becoming a mirror for other people's battles, a voice for what they couldn't always say out loud. The news vans arrived by noon. One reporter asked for an interview, but Lena quietly declined. She wasn't trying to become a symbol. She just needed the medicine. Still, more people came. Local businesses offered to sponsor her treatments. A group of school children from the nearby elementary came with hand-drawn cards and a jar of coins. A violinist played beside her table for an hour, saying it was the least he could do. Lena could barely sit still from the emotion swelling inside her. Angela watched it all unfold like a surreal dream. Her daughter, frail but radiant, surrounded by life and light. At one point, Lena sold 6 paintings in under 30 minutes. Some people didn't even want the artwork. They insisted on paying anyway. The same tree she had painted days before was now tattooed on someone's arm. Our cafe renamed their house blend after her, Lena's Resilience Roast. The world wasn't just noticing, it was responding. But even in the crowd, one figure stood apart. A man in a grey hoodie leaned against a lamppost across the street, arms folded, face hidden in shadow. He watched with quiet focus, never taking out his phone, never speaking. Lena caught his presence just before packing up. He didn't move, he didn't smile, but something about him felt familiar, like the silence right before thunder. Saturday morning brought a cooler breeze, a welcome relief after days of blistering sun. Lena had just finished arranging her newest set of paintings when she felt it again, that strange pull like being watched, but not in a threatening way. She looked up. Across the street near the bakery entrance stood the man in the grey hoodie, same posture, same stillness. But now, he was closer. He waited until the crowd thinned before stepping forward. His gait was calm, almost hesitant, like someone who didn't want to interrupt a sacred moment. As he approached, a gust of wind lifted the hood slightly, and Lena's breath caught. Even before she saw his full face, she knew. Keanu Reeves, the real one. Not a look-alike, not a dream. He stood in front of her, hands tucked into his hoodie pocket, offering the smallest, kindest smile she had ever seen. The street noise seemed to dim as he spoke. "I saw your story," he said, voice warm but soft. "And I wanted to see your art in person." Lena didn't respond right away. Her mouth opened, but the words got stuck somewhere between awe and disbelief. Angela froze behind her, one hand on her chest, eyes wide. Keanu glanced at the display. "Did you paint all of these?" Lena nodded slowly. "Yes," she whispered. "Every one." He pointed to the tree in the lightning storm. "This one. What's it called?" She looked at the canvas, then back at him. Still standing. He nodded thoughtfully. "That's what it feels like." His eyes lingered on the painting for a few seconds more, as if memorizing it. A few onlookers began whispering. Someone raised their phone. But Keanu didn't pose, didn't perform. He looked only at Lena. "I'd like to buy it," he said. "How much?" Her voice trembled as she replied, 200. The number felt enormous and tiny all at once. She held her breath. He didn't blink. Instead, he reached into his back pocket, not for cash, but for a checkbook. With a quiet pen stroke, he wrote a number, then handed it over with both hands. Lena stared at it, unable to process the amount. $50,000. "Consider it an investment," he said with a grin. "Not in the art Ewag, in you." For a few moments the world around them fell silent. The check trembled slightly in Lena's hands, not from weight, but from meaning. $50,000, more than her mother had earned in a year, more than the cost of her remaining treatments. Angela blinked rapidly, trying to hold back tears, but one escaped and trailed down her cheek. Keanu didn't react with fanfare. He simply watched Lena with the quiet reverence of someone witnessing something sacred. Lena finally looked up at him. Why would you do this?" Her voice cracked midway. Keanu crouched beside her, eyes level with hers. "Because I've seen storms," he said gently. "And I know what it takes to survive them." He tapped the corner of the canvas. "This painting, that's not weakness, that's truth." His tone was steady, not pitying, not heroic, just honest. He asked her if she always painted storms. Lena shrugged. "I used to paint dreams, but lately, it's been harder to imagine anything that soft." He nodded slowly, like he understood exactly what she meant. "Then maybe your job isn't to escape the storm. Maybe it's to show others how to walk through it." The words hung in the air between them, more powerful than any headline. Angela finally found her voice. "Mr. Reeves, we can't accept this." But he shook his head before she could finish. "You're not accepting anything, you're earning it. Every brushstroke, every hour you sat here, it's more than most people do with perfect health and all the time in the world." His voice didn't rise. It didn't need to. The truth carried its own weight. A few feet away, someone recorded the moment on their phone without being noticed. Keanu gave Lena a gentle fist bump and added, "Keep creating. The world needs what you have." Then, without waiting for applause or recognition, he slipped the painting under his arm, pulled his hoodie back over his head, and began walking away, quietly disappearing into the crowd that had now frozen in awe. Lena sat still, staring at the check again, then at the empty space where he had stood. For the first time since her diagnosis, she didn't feel afraid. She felt chosen, not by luck, not by fame, but by something deeper. A reminder that sometimes hope doesn't shout. It shows up. The check was still clutched in Lena's hand as people slowly approached, unsure whether to speak or just witness the moment. One woman placed a hand over her heart and whispered, "Did that really just happen?" A man in a delivery uniform stepped forward and asked if she needed help packing up. Lena smiled, dazed but grateful. The energy had shifted, from curiosity to reverence. Everyone had felt it. By that evening, the video quietly filmed by a bystander was already spreading across every platform imaginable. The caption read, "Keanu Reeves just changed a girl's life. No PR, no cameras, just heart." Within hours, it had over 1 million views. Comment sections overflowed with disbelief, praise, and, most importantly, donations. People didn't just want to watch the story, they wanted to join it. Angela set up a crowdfunding page, not expecting much, but the link went viral within minutes. In less than 24 hours, over $120,000 had been raised. Donations poured in from all over the world, some large, others just $5, always with messages like "For Lena" or "Because I believe in art." Celebrities reposted the video. Foundations reached out. But Lena? She stayed quiet, humble, focused. She returned to her stand the next day, but this time she wasn't alone. People brought chairs, food, supplies. Local artists set up beside her in solidarity. A chalk mural of her storm tree appeared on the sidewalk behind her. She had become more than a girl with cancer. She was now a symbol, not of illness, but of resilience, of what it meant to stand tall in the face of erasure. The gallery calls started coming shortly after. One curator from the San Solano Art Collective offered her a spot in their spring exhibition. "Your work carries something raw," he said. "It makes people feel." Lena didn't have to think twice. Her healing wasn't just medical anymore, it was creative, emotional, collective. What began as survival had become something larger than herself. And quietly tucked away in a private studio in Los Angeles, the original painting, still standing, was now hanging on a wall surrounded by instruments, books, and incense. Keanu Reeves had framed it personally. Next to it, he'd pinned a note. "When the world forgets to see you, make them feel you." 2 days later, Lena's story made the national morning shows. Not because she asked for it, but because no one could ignore it. Anchor after anchor described her as the brave teenage artist who moved a superstar to tears. But what really moved people wasn't the celebrity. It was the intention. Lena hadn't begged, she hadn't pleaded. She had simply shown up over and over with her truth on canvas. Donations kept pouring in, and Lena used them wisely. After covering her chemo costs, she asked her mother if they could donate a portion to help other kids in the oncology ward. Angela hesitated for a moment, then nodded, her voice tight with emotion. "Let's do it." The media picked that up too. Headlines read, "Teen gives back before finishing her own fight." The irony wasn't lost on anyone. Her sidewalk stand transformed into something like a living gallery. People flew in from out of state just to meet her. One elderly man arrived from Nevada and handed her a painting of his late wife, asking her to keep it safe. She cried as she accepted it. Tourists brought children. Cancer survivors left notes. Some days Lena could barely finish a painting without someone hugging her mid-brushstroke. A representative from the San Solano Art Collective stopped by and asked her to headline a spring exhibit. "We don't want to frame your work," he said. "We want to frame your story." Lena accepted quietly, humbly, and immediately began sketching new pieces, some soft, some stormy, all honest. She wasn't trying to impress anymore. She was trying to heal. Angela, once overwhelmed by despair, now walked with her head high, not because of the fame, but because her daughter had shown the world something she always knew. Strength doesn't always roar. Sometimes it paints quietly behind a folding table. Sometimes it changes lives without even knowing it. And through all of it, Lena kept one brush set separate, the same ones from her first day. Dried paint clung to the bristles, and the handles were chipped. She refused to clean them. "They remind me where it started," she said. And every time someone asked her, "How did this happen?" she answered with a small smile, "Because I kept showing up." The San Solano Art Collective buzzed with quiet excitement. Spotlights cast soft golden glows over white walls, each one now graced with Lena's paintings. The crowd moved slowly, reverently. Viewers weren't just admiring the art. They were absorbing pieces of a girl's fight, stitched into every canvas. There were no pitying glances here, only awe, only recognition. Lena stood near the entrance, wearing a simple navy dress, her hair wrapped in a colorful scarf that matched one of her paintings. She looked healthier now, stronger, yes, but also more anchored. Angela stood beside her, holding her hand like she had on the first day at the sidewalk. They exchanged no words. None were needed. This moment was their breath after the storm. The room quieted when the curator stepped forward to give a brief speech. He pointed to a framed print of Still Standing, the same painting Keanu had bought. "The original," he said, "now hangs in Los Angeles. But tonight, its spirit is with us." Beneath the print, mounted like a secret, was a handwritten letter from Keanu himself, simple, powerful. "Your art heals more than you know." The crowd erupted into soft applause. Some wiped their eyes. A woman in the back whispered, "She's more than an artist, she's a lighthouse." Lena tried to thank them, but her voice caught. Instead, she offered a bow of her head and raised a brush in the air like a salute. The gesture was small, but it carried everything. Throughout the night, gallery guests shared their own battles: grief, illness, isolation. One man said he hadn't picked up a paintbrush in 20 years. Another said he had finally signed up for therapy after reading Lena's story. This wasn't just an exhibit. It was a ripple of healing, a quiet revolution in color and courage. And as the night wound down, Lena stepped back from the crowd to take it all in. Her eyes landed on the print of Still Standing. She didn't feel like the girl who painted it anymore, but she would always carry that tree within her, rooted, weathered, and still reaching for light. It was a quiet Tuesday afternoon when Lena walked back through the doors of Riverside Hope Medical Center. This time not as a patient, not as someone waiting for answers, but as someone ready to give. In her arms, she carried a box of sketchbooks, colored pencils, and watercolors. Her hair was growing back. Her energy was still returning, but her purpose stronger than ever. The pediatric oncology ward hadn't changed much. Same pastel walls, same antiseptic air. But Lena noticed the little things. A child with an IV giggling over a cartoon. A nurse humming softly while checking vitals. Hope, it seemed, always made room for itself, even in the quietest corners. Lena walked to the front of the art room and set her supplies down. Then she smiled. "Hi," she said gently. "My name's Lena, and today we're going to make something that matters." The kids stared at her with wide eyes, curious. A few glanced at the paintings already hanging around the room, prints donated from Lena's sidewalk stand. One girl pointed and asked, "Did you make that one?" Lena nodded. "Yeah, but I think yours might be even better." She began teaching once a week, nothing formal. Just colors, shapes, and the freedom to express. One boy painted dragons, another drew himself as a superhero. A girl in remission painted a storm, just like Lena's. "But mine has a rainbow," she whispered. Lena hugged her without a word. She didn't need to explain. They understood each other beyond language. One evening after a class, Lena stood in the hallway and looked at her reflection in a vending machine window. For a moment, she didn't see the girl who had once felt invisible. She saw an artist, a teacher, a survivor. And she realized something. Not every storm is meant to be feared. Some storms come to water the seeds we didn't know we'd planted. As her voice closes the story in narration, we hear her final reflection. Some people walk by your life, others change it, quietly, completely, and forever. Lena didn't ask to be seen. She simply refused to disappear. Her story isn't about fame or fortune. It's about showing up day after day, even when the world turns away. It's about a quiet strength that turned a sidewalk into a sanctuary, and a single act of kindness into a wave of healing that touched millions. So ask yourself, who in your life is silently fighting a battle, and how can you show up for them? Drop your thoughts in the comments. We'd love to hear your perspective. If this story moved you, don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel. Your support helps us keep sharing stories that matter. And get ready. Our next video dives into another incredible story of someone underestimated, until the world saw what they were truly made of.